Eritrea. The country often overlooked, nestled in the Horn of Africa. Its landscapes are as diverse as they are breathtaking, from the arid deserts to the lush highlands. But beyond its natural beauty lies a complex and often harsh reality. Land of scorching sun and ancient history. A place where the past and present collide, where ancient ruins whisper tales of bygone eras, and the relentless sun casts long shadows over the land, but also a land shrouded in silence. The streets are often eerily quiet, the countryside still as if holding its breath. This silence is not just the absence of sound, but a palpable presence, a heavy cloak that drapes over the nation. A silence enforced by an iron fist. This was Selam's reality. Growing up, she saw the omnipresent military, the soldiers who patrolled the streets, the checkpoints that dotted the landscape. It was a constant reminder of the regime's grip on every aspect of life. Born under a sky where dreams dared not take flight, Selam's childhood was marked by a sense of confinement, a feeling that her aspirations were caged by invisible bars. The sky, vast and open, seemed to mock her with its freedom. Selam grew up in a small village. It was a place where everyone knew each other, where traditions were upheld, and where the outside world felt like a distant, unreachable place. Life was simple, untouched by the technological advancements of the outside world. The villagers relied on age-old practices for farming and daily life, creating a sense of timelessness. She knew the feel of the dry earth beneath her feet. The cracked, parched ground was a constant underfoot, a reminder of the harsh environment they lived in. She knew the rhythm of the seasons, the cycles of planting and harvest, the brief rains that brought life to the land, and the long, dry spells that tested their resilience. She knew the weight of oppression that hung heavy in the air, the fear that permeated the village, the whispered conversations, the cautious glances. It was a collective burden that everyone bore. Every young Eritrean, upon turning 18, was conscripted, indefinite military service. This was not just a rite of passage, but a tool of control, a way to keep the population in check, a tool of control disguised as national duty. Selam dreaded this. The thought of losing her freedom, of being forced into a life of servitude, filled her with dread. She yearned for a life where her dreams were not dictated by the state. Years blurred. The days turned into months, the months into years, and still her dreams remained out of reach. Selam lost herself in the monotony of military drills and endless labor. The repetitive tasks, the harsh conditions, the lack of purpose. It was a life devoid of meaning. The vibrant spirit within her slowly dimmed under the oppressive regime. The spark that once lit up her eyes faded, replaced by a dull, lifeless gaze. Every day felt like an eternity. The endless routine, the lack of hope, the feeling of being trapped in a never-ending cycle. Hope seemed a distant memory, yet in the quiet moments when she looked at old photographs or watched the sunrise, a flicker of hope would stir within her. A reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can find a way to endure. Whispers traveled on the wind. Stories of people escaping, risking everything for a chance at freedom. The whispers spoke of perilous journeys, of treacherous deserts and unforgiving seas. Selam listened. Hope, once a flickering ember, started to burn brighter. She saw a reflection of her own longing in the eyes of those who dared to dream of escape. The risk, once unthinkable, now felt like her only chance. One night, under the cloak of darkness, Selam joined a small group. They moved silently, their footsteps muffled by the desert sand. The weight of fear sat heavy on her chest, but it was eclipsed by a surge of adrenaline. Leaving behind everything she knew was agonizing, but staying meant surrendering to a life devoid of hope. Selam was determined to carve her own destiny, even if it meant risking it all. Sudan, a temporary respite. A land that has seen its own share of turmoil and conflict now serves as a brief sanctuary for those fleeing even greater horrors, a place to catch their breath before the next leg of their perilous journey. Here, in the heart of the desert, they find a momentary pause, a fleeting sense of safety amidst the chaos. The vastness of the desert was humbling, endless stretches of sand and sky, a stark reminder of the harsh environment they must traverse. The relentless sun beat down on them as they walked, each step a struggle, each breath a labor. The heat was oppressive, sapping their strength and testing their resolve. Selam and her companions found refuge in a makeshift camp. a collection of tents and tarps offering scant protection from the elements but a semblance of community. It was a sea of tents filled with people who carried the same haunted look in their eyes that had seen too much, endured too much, yet still held a flicker of hope. The stories they shared painted a grim picture of the challenges that lay ahead, tales of loss and survival, of loved ones left behind and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The camp offered little more than basic survival, a place to rest, to gather strength, but not to thrive. Food and water were scarce. Sanitation was rudimentary. Disease spread quickly, the conditions were harsh, and the struggle for survival was constant. Yet there was a sense of solidarity amongst the displaced, a shared understanding of their plight and a willingness to help one another. But Sudan was not their destination. It was a waypoint, a brief stop on a much longer journey. It was just a stepping stone on a much longer and more perilous journey, a journey fraught with danger and uncertainty, but driven by the hope of a better future. The spectre of human trafficking loomed large, a constant threat that preyed on the vulnerable, adding another layer of fear to their already precarious existence. A constant threat that cast a dark shadow over their fragile hope. Yet despite the dangers, they pressed on, driven by the dream of a safer, more stable life. Section 4. Libyan Nightmare. Libya. A land of chaos and lawlessness. A breeding ground for human traffickers who preyed on the desperation of refugees like Salam. The whispers in the Sudanese camp became a horrifying reality. Salam and her group fell into the clutches of ruthless smugglers. They were herded like cattle, crammed into trucks. The air was thick with the stench of sweat and fear. Their captors treated them with unimaginable cruelty. Days turned into weeks. Salam endured unimaginable horrors in a Libyan detention center. Beatings were commonplace, food was scarce, the guards saw them not as human beings but as commodities to be exploited. The traffickers demanded exorbitant sums of money for their release. They extorted families back home, preying on their desperation. Salam felt utterly helpless, trapped in a nightmare with no end in sight. Section 5, Sea of Despair, the Mediterranean, a vast expanse of water that held the promise of a new life. For many, it was a symbol of hope, a gateway to a future free from the shackles of their past. But for others, it was a daunting challenge, a test of their will to survive. But for Salam, it represented the most terrifying part of her journey. The sea was not just a body of water, it was a vast, unpredictable force that could either be her savior or her doom. Packed onto an overcrowded, rickety boat, she felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. The boat was barely holding together, a fragile lifeline in the midst of a relentless storm. Hundreds of souls crammed together like sardines, each one carrying their own stories of pain and hope. The air was thick with the scent of desperation and fear. The stench of vomit and fuel filled the air, a nauseating reminder of their dire situation. The boat rocked violently, causing many to lose their balance and their last meal. The cries of children echoed around her, their wails a haunting symphony of fear and confusion. Mothers tried to soothe their little ones, but their own eyes betrayed their terror. Fear hung heavy in the air, as palpable as the salt spray that lashed their faces. Every wave that crashed against the boat felt like a harbinger of doom, a reminder of the peril they faced. The journey was a nightmare, an unending ordeal that tested the limits of their endurance. Each passing hour felt like an eternity, filled with the constant threat of capsizing. Days turned into nights as they bobbed precariously on the unforgiving waves. The relentless motion of the sea made it impossible to rest, their bodies and minds pushed to the brink of exhaustion. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, thirst parched their throats, seasickness ravaged their bodies. Every moment was a struggle to stay alive, to keep hope from slipping away. The fear of drowning was ever present, a dark shadow that loomed over them. Each wave that crashed against the boat felt like a reminder of their fragile existence. The boat creaked and groaned under the strain, its old wooden frame protesting against the relentless assault of the sea. Every sound was a reminder of how close they were to disaster. The flimsy vessel felt like it could capsize at any moment. Each wave threatened to overturn their fragile sanctuary, plunging them into the cold, unforgiving depths below. Salam clung to a shred of hope, praying for a miracle. In the midst of despair, she found strength in her faith, believing that somehow they would make it through this sea of despair.